But I'm particularly concerned that from what I hear today in Rustenburg, and I was there personally, from sources inside UMCU and the Mine Workers Union, that Jacob Zuma will be appearing on the platform of the commemoration. A man at the time that the lawyers, Dali and Pofa included, argued should be arrested along with his cabinet. Even though he was absent, we know that the cabinet secretary would be in constant contact with the president about the important decisions that were made. And we do believe a decision was made to use deadly force against the mine workers that day. We do know that Jacob Zuma blamed the mine workers in subsequent interviews, even though he said, you know, he came out wholeheartedly in support of the NUM, whose 9 NUM members' lives were lost that day. Yeah. None of those mine workers were defended by the victims. The families were defended by the NUM, legal defense. So it's a very sad situation to see things turn around in such a way where you invite the executioner onto the platform of a commemoration.
Very, very strong words there, and we'll have to wait and see if indeed the former president is invited to Marikana tomorrow. Let's bring into the conversation Thando Hlophe, a video journalist. Thando, good evening to you. I remember you and I were working for a particular broadcaster, and we were there to see those events unfold. There was a particular treatment towards female journalists. Take us back to what you remember of the days leading up to, and in particular, August 16.
Thank you so much, Xoli, for having me to speak about such a hard, traumatic, tragic time in South Africa's history. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty hostile situation for weeks, for days leading up to that day. Specifically, I think as a journalist, we are so used to being around hostile environments that when you start to see numbers dwindle, when you start to see like one person getting hurt on one day, then you start to feel, oh, things might be dying down. But it was very different with this, with Marikana. I remember I went there with a former colleague now, and I often wonder sometimes, because she's now an NUM spokesperson, I often wonder if that's the day that she got radicalized to move to the other side. Pagamile Hlubi, we went together that morning, and we had been trying to get pictures and visuals of the men who were gathering at the copy, and it was very difficult. I think first there's a journalist from SABC at the time who had gone to just go see what's happening, and she came back traumatized because they had told her, they had spoken some really harsh words towards her specifically because she was a woman. But she was of a different race. So I think Mile and myself thought, maybe we can speak to our brethren in a language they understand, and we'll be able to coax them into speaking to us and telling us exactly what their grievances were, specifically on that day. Yeah. And a colleague, Felix Langamandla, who had gone and taken pictures, came back with them. So we figured, we could go as well. And when we got to the copy, we were not welcome. Part of the reasoning was that they had been using some herbs, some umuti, to strengthen themselves. And they believed that women could possibly be dirty. We could be on our menses, and if we stepped anywhere close, it would weaken what they had tried to do to strengthen themselves to have a face-off. I'm not sure with police or with whomever they thought they were going to have a face-off with that day. And we had to retreat. And I called the office and I asked them to quickly send somebody who's a man who they would welcome and be able to speak to. And I think that was, Joe Gomane at the time got there in the nick of time, because he's the one who actually captured the live visuals, which were unprecedented at the time of seeing people live being massacred in the way that they were.
You're watching News at Prime. If you're just joining us, we are discussing 12 years on since the Marikana massacre. What has changed for what that whole fight was about between workers and their employer? And with me in studio, Rehad Desai, a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. Rehad, let's pick up with you. Because of the shortness of time, I'm going to launch straight into why you took a particular angle on that documentary. But add to that, if you could just include the politics today. You mentioned that former President Jacob Zuma could, and I want to stress the word could because we don't know for certain, but could be appearing in Marikana tomorrow. And you're saying that that would be a tragic turn of events because I guess it reflects the politics of the day in the country. What does that do to the memory of those workers?
I think it taints it. They will take it as an insult to an injury. It will rub further salt into a wound which is still open because of the lack of justice. I took the angle I did because as a progressive filmmaker, I think it's always important that we side with those who have been the victims of gross human rights violations and give voice to the voiceless. The very competent team of lawyers that defended the miners and the injured and arrested and the families at the Commission of Inquiry uncovered something which contested the narrative that these violent mine workers were to blame somehow for their own deaths, for their own injuries. And what became clear was actually this was a state plan to break a bona fide strike, which was, even though it was a wildcat strike, workers still have the right to strike under the Constitution. And they were aiming to break that with violence. So evidence came forth that the police had ordered the night before 4,000 rounds of live ammunition, a number of mortuary vans that could carry up to 40 people, and given orders to the ambulance services not to enter the area until an hour after the people had been shot. Now, we know that the Commissioner of Police, the Provincial Commissioner of Police, said today that the strike ends. We know that there was collusion between Lonmin and the police around the ending of that strike, this decision to end the strike. And we also know that Lonmin were deeply involved in the policing, directing the policing operation. We know that the cabinet had signed off on this plan. Well, we don't have evidence, but I don't think an operation of that sort, of such high profile, would happen, according to Ronnie Caswell's, a former cabinet minister, would happen without the sign-off of the cabinet. Now, I think to invite someone who's directly responsible, the head of that cabinet, to address mine workers is pouring fuel onto fire and will result, I think, in a backlash. We will see protest action at the copy if the president does, the former president does appear. So this is really, I think, if you look at it, and we look at the EFF, and the likes of Floyd joining the ranks of MK, you know, openly ethnic chauvinist organisation, with other members of the EFF, endorsing a bunch of looters, really, and that was the big turning point. If they could get away with murdering so many mine workers, it showed complete contempt for the working poor, a complete lack of accountability. And we're seeing that play out now, today. I was speaking to you earlier about the fact that Johannesburg, despite power cuts being over, and the Gauteng thanking, the Premier thanking Eskom and the President and so on, city power are still we're still seeing power cuts in one of our key provinces. We're still seeing water shedding. we're still seeing a tremendous lack of accountability across a whole number of criminal operations that are aimed at looting the state.
Thando, Rehad Desai bemoans the possibility, again I'm stressing the word, the possibility of the former president, because it was his cabinet, under whose possible instruction that police would go into Marikana and do what happened on the 16th. But there was the other player who was not in government at the time, but today that person is President Ramaphosa, and we as journalists are supposed to hold the spotlight on the people that either make promises, and one of those promises by President Ramaphosa, even though he was not found guilty by the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, but he decided to voluntarily make a promise to meet with the widows, and that promise would be, I will go there with Winnie Madikizela Mandela. She is no more. Do you think that whenever this day comes, President Ramaphosa feels any sense of responsibility in fulfilling that promise?
I mean, to be fair, he's been his visit to the widows has not been approved by UMCU, and that's why he says he has not gone.
Well, Thando, do you want to have a quick response to that?
I mean, it's something that will follow him forever. So I mean, obviously I can't speak for him, whether he feels what he feels when this day comes every single year. But absolutely, he absolutely needs to fulfill his promises. I mean, even with the repatriations that we were speaking about, reparations rather, it started off with them promising billions. It became millions. And till today, some miners speak of having injuries that they have to still take care of by themselves and they still don't have like tons of money still to take care of the injuries that they incurred on that day. And who better to take more accountability than number one at this point? So I don't know what he feels, but if he has a soul, a heart, he should absolutely fulfill his promises.
Yeah. Dick Forslund, let's come to you, and you'll probably have the last word because of time constraints. The mining landscape, has anything changed for the better in terms of the workers' salaries, including the conditions? I'm talking here social labor plans.
Well, I think that one constant factor since 2012, which is compressing wages in the whole mining industry, that is profit shifting out from the country. And you might know that AIDC did a report for the Marikana Commission about what Lonmin had been doing all the way up to the massacre in 2012. So because of the power of the Marikana Commission, we got access to the financial statements of the subsidiaries of Lonmin in South Africa, the actual mines. And when you looked at these financial statements, you would see that between 250 million and 350 million, 1 year 400 million, was siphoned off to an outfit on Bermuda, which wasn't more than a sort of a letterbox company, or the address of this company was in fact to a law firm which specialized in such arrangement. And I mean, the task of the Marikana Commission was it at all possible for Lonmin to negotiate about this 12,500 demand? And this investigation, which was handed over to the Marikana Commission, it showed that if you kind of divide these siphoning off of the profits under the label of so-called sales commission, even if by all means nobody was sitting on Bermuda selling anything of the Lonmin platinum. If you divide it on the 4,200 rock drill operators who sort of launched this demand in June 2012, then it would have suffered to a wage increase of between 4,500, they could have doubled the wages. And that is why we as AIDC now, when we speak with trade union negotiators, we routinely tell comrades that they must ask for the financial statements of all the companies that are under a hat, under a kind of mother company like Lonmin was at that time, because this profit shifting out from the country, it's still taking place. And you know that Davis Tax Commission has also pointed to this. And I mean, what happened at Lonmin before the massacre, it gave even rise to a new concept. We speak today about wage evasion and wage avoidance, not only tax evasion and tax avoidance. So that is the advice. That is kind of like a crude advice to trade union negotiators. Demand the financial statements of all the subsidiaries of the employer you are negotiating with. Maybe you will find something. Probably you will find something.
Dick Forslund, I want to thank you very much for your contribution to this important discussion. Thando Hlophe, a video journalist, also joining us via video link. Thank you very much for your reflections of what happened on August 2012. Rehad Desai, sitting with me in studio. Thank you for your reflections. We shall watch the events tomorrow and how the 12th year of the Marikana massacre is remembered in this country. Thank you very much for your time.